Hey everybody, this is Mike with Birdman Gaming, and we are continuing our series of what I'm playing in Commander and what I have built, what I'm working on, and ideas I have. Um, the last two videos you've seen what I'm working with Cardor, and you have seen my current Volo build. Those are both decks. Cardor is a deck I used to have years ago. Volo I've never played, but I have it built. Now we're getting into stuff I actually have played and enjoyed. And these decks are going to be a little bit more fleshed out. They're going to be actually somewhat decent decks and everything. Um, the deck that I'm going through today, which as you can see is Azusa Lost But Seeking, was essentially bought with a collection when I first got my Social Security a couple back in 2020. A friend of mine wanted to sell his entire collection, and when he did, the deck was part of it. And he didn't want to sell it to stores or anything, so he came to me. He lives in my neighborhood. Um, we negotiated a price. I bought the entire collection. Um, Again, it's in part because I had to sell my stuff back in 2019 when my mom got real bad sick, and we were trying to survive. I wasn't on Social Security at the time, and she was really bad sick, so I just sold everything so that I could take care of her and ease the stress, which helped, and it kept her alive, which is very good. So, one of the deals was when I got my Social Security, I was going to just start rebuilding my own personal collection of cards. I wanted to have fun whenever I could get out and game. And so, my friend knew this. He had let me borrow this deck for a while prior to. So, it just wound up becoming mine, along with everything else he had. I was okay with that. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into this. This is basically big mana do stuff. Uh, if you've been playing a while, you know what Azusa does and how dumb extra land drops can be every turn. Um, she allows you to play two additional lands every turn. So you ramp out to something really big, like a Kozilek, an Ulamog, a Vorinclex, something like that, and your opponents just can't deal with it. I'm going to go through the the lands that I have in this deck first, since the deck is built for lands. So we are going to go through our non-basics first, which are a very small section. We've got an Eye of Ugin. Lets you cast your Eldrazi 2 cheaper and pay 7, search for an Eldrazi. Or a colorless creature card, rather. Reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle. If you have 5 lands or more, 2 additional colorless mana. This lets you stabilize until you can get your big dudes out. Your opponent tries to steal your stuff. Homeward Path. And, of course, everybody's favorite land destruction. Strip Mine. Actually, this is a 4th edition. If I remember correctly, it is. That is our non-basics. This week, I will show you the basics. There are 32 of this one forest, so I'm just going to show you. It is I do believe this is unstable. There are 32 of them. Absolutely beautiful. And just looks good in the deck. And that's our land suite for the entire deck. I don't have these organized like I did last week. I just pulled out the lands so that I could show them. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to grab a stack, go through it. If something needs explaining, I will. If not, we'll just do this really fast. So here's our first stack. We have Summoning Trap. It lets me look at the top 7 cards of my library, put a creature from among them on the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of my library in any order. Nylea, God of the Hunt. Other creatures I control have trample. Plus Pump. This is also indestructible. Toski. Indestructible 1/1. He can't be countered. He attacks every turn if able. Whenever a creature I control deals combat damage to a player, I draw a card. Vizier the Menagerie. I can look at the top card of my library. I may cast the top card of my library if it's a creature card. And I may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast creature spells. Elvish Reclaimer. As long as there are 3 or more lands in my yard, he gets +2/+2. Tap 2, sacrifice a land, search for a land, put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Tireless Tracker. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under my control, investigate. Whenever I sacrifice a clue, he gets a +1/+1 counter. This is a beta Life Force. Enchantment, pay 2 green. Counter a black spell. This is probably going to come out of the deck and be traded off. It is a relatively expensive card nowadays. And so if I can trade it off for something I can actually use, I plan on it. And I think there's some stuff on the inner sleeve. These are all sleeved in perfect fit hards. Yeah. There's just stuff on the inside of the perfect fit. Not on the card itself. I'm a firm believer in perfect fit hards. They are great card protection. Primeval Bounty. Whenever I cast a creature spell, I get a beast token. Whenever I cast a non-creature spell, I put 3 counters on target creature I control. Whenever a land enters, I gain 3 life. Recollect Sorcery. Put something from my yard back into my hand. Sylvan's Crying. Search my library for a land, reveal it, put it in my hand, then shuffle. Crucible. Lets me play lands from my graveyard. Solemn Simulacrum. Lets me, when he enters, search my library for a basic land, put it into play tapped. When he dies, I draw. Prowling Serpapod. He can't be countered. Other creatures, spells I control cannot be countered. Docent of the Falling Leaf. Players can only play spells during their own turn. Beast Within. Destroy target permanent. Its controller puts a 3/3 green beast token into play. Worldly Tutor. Search my library for a creature, reveal it, shuffle my library, put it on top. Excavator lets me put play lands for my graveyard. Lifecrafter's Bestiary. At the beginning of my upkeep, scry one. Whenever I cast a creature spell, pay a green. If I do, I can draw a card. Seedborn lets me untap during every other player's untap step. Exploration gives me an additional land drop every turn. Garruk Primal Hunter. Put a 3/3 green beast token into play. Of course, he's a token generator. Soul Ring, of course. Staple and Commander. Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. Indestructible. Whenever I cast him, I destroy target permanent. He has Annihilator 4, so whenever he attacks somebody, they have to sacrifice 4 permanents before they declare blockers. When he's put in the graveyard from anywhere, he shuffles the entire graveyard back. World Breaker. Whenever I cast him, exile target artifact, enchantment, or land. Reach. Pay 2, sacrifice a land. 2 and a colorless. Sacrifice a land. Put them from my yard back into my hand. Sensei's Divining Top. Just a staple. Ulvenwald Hydra. Power and toughness equal to the number of lands I control. Whenever he enters the battlefield, search my library for a land. Put it on the battlefield, tapped, and then shuffle my library. Emrakul the Promised Land. Whenever I cast him... first, cost 1 less to cast for each card type amongst cards I control. Whenever I cast Emrakul, I gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, they take another turn. Flying trample protection from instants. Void Winnower. Your opponents can't even. That's basically it. They cannot even. Next stack. We do play a little bit of Group Hug. Whenever a player plays a land, they may draw a card. Actually, they have to draw a card. There is a no may. That's not whenever a land enters the battlefield. That's only when they play a land. Nissa's Pilgrimage. Search your library for up to 2 basics. Reveal them, putting onto the battlefield, tap, then rest in your hand, then shuffle. Let's put 1 onto the battlefield. Spell Mastery. If there are 2 or more instants, search your library for up to 3 instead of 2. Explore. You get an additional land drop and draw a card. Artifact and enchantment removal with split second. Wayward Sword 2. 5/5. Play an additional land each turn. And he can't attack or block unless I have City's Blessing, which means I have to have 10 or more permanents to trigger Ascend. Once I trigger Ascend, I always have City's Blessing. Genesis Wave. Reveal the top X cards of my library. Put any number of permanents with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then put all other cards revealed this way on the that weren't put into play into my yard. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Whenever I cast him, draw 4 cards, Annihilator 4, and if he was put into the graveyard from anywhere, shuffle my entire graveyard. Nissa, Vital Force. Untap a land. It becomes a 5/5 with haste, still a land. Return something from my permanent from my graveyard to my hand, or I get an emblem with whenever a land enters the battlefield under my control, I may draw a card. Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. Whenever you tap a land for mana, it's an additional mana. Whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, that land does not untap during its controller's next untap step. Lurking Predators. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of my library. Rishkar's expertise. Draw cards equal to the greatest power amongst creatures I control. I may cast something with converted mana cost 5 or less from my hand without paying its mana cost. Heroic Intervention. Permanents I control gain hexproof and indestructible in the tail end of turn. Vigor. If damage would be dealt to another creature I control, prevent that damage and put a +1/+1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented that way. When he's put into the graveyard from anywhere, he gets shuffled back in. Eternal Witness. Return something from my yard to my hand. Dryad of Elysian Grove gives me an additional land drop each turn. Lands are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So, everything's forests. Momentous Fall. Sacrifice a creature. Draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Then I gain life equal to its toughness. Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. Pay green, add X mana of any color combination of to my mana pool, where X is the greatest power amongst creatures I control. Nyx Lotus. Enters tapped. Choose a color. Add a mana amount of mana of that color equal to my devotion of that color, which of course in this deck would be green. All about that mana ramp. Last stack. Here we go. We got Regrowth. Return something from my yard to my hand. Woodfall Primus. Trample. When he enters, destroy target non-creature permanent. And he has Persist, so if he dies, he comes back and does it again. With a -1/-1 counter. Seek the Horizon. Search for up to 3 basics. Reveal them, put them in my hand, then shuffle. Zendikar Resurgent. Whenever I tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to my pool of that type of any type that land produced. Whenever I cast a creature card, I draw a card. Reliquary Tower. No max hand size. Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. Whenever I cast Ulamog, exile 2 target permanents. Indestructible. Whenever he attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of his or her library. Scavenging Ooze. Pay green. Exile a card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And I gain a life. Greater Good. Sacrifice a creature. Draw cards equal to its power, then discard 3 cards. Skyshroud Claim. Search my library for up to 2 forests and put them into play. Then shuffle. Cultivate. Search my library for up to 2 basics. Reveal them. Put 1 into play tapped and the other one in my hand. Then shuffle. Harmonize. Sorcery. Draw 3. Yiva. Flash. And I may cast green creatures as though they had flash. Green Sun Zenith. Search my library for a green creature card with converted mana cost X or less. Put it on the battlefield, then shuffle my library. Shuffle Green Sun Zenith into its owner's library. Traverse the Outland. Search my library for up to 8 X basic land cards where X is the greatest power amongst creatures I control. Put those onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle my library. Crop rotations. Sacrifice a land. Search my library for a land, put it into play, then shuffle. And Oracle of Moldiah. I get an additional land drop each turn. I play with the top card of my library revealed. And I may play the top card of my library if it's a land. Again, the deck is self-explanatory. It's play a lot of lands, play big stuff, win the game. When I first started playing Magic back in September of 1996, I started playing with mono green. The guy who was teaching me how to play using mono green. Granted, when I first started playing, I had to deal with Stasis Winter Orb deck. So I had to teach myself and look through every card to try and figure out how to beat that oppressiveness. Finally, I was able to figure it out. And so green holds a very special place in my heart over the years. We're in 26 years now playing this game, just about. This September will be 26 years. I won the 15th anniversary championship. It was sealed. I've had one other memorable moment in the game, really. But other than that, it's just something I enjoy, you know. It keeps me focused. The math involved sometimes is really intense. I had a couple of situations when I was in Indianapolis back in September of this year where math was important with one of my other commander decks. And I was able to break down exactly how it worked and give them the exact numbers. I was off by 2 doing quick math with triggers and everything else. So they could not. I was able to basically kill the entire board with Cathar's Crusade and 20. It was wound up being 20 triggers as opposed to 22 triggers. So everything got everything that was attacking had plus 20 plus 20. They couldn't really deal with it. So anyway, as you can see, I have some fun. I enjoy building decks. I truly do. This I've added just a little bit to this since I got it. But for the most part, it's the way that I got it from my friend. Just over a year and a half ago when I purchased it. And I've played it. I played it a lot more before I actually purchased it because I've got other decks now and I have fun with those other decks as well. Next week I will be showing off Tiny Bones. Tiny Bones is still being tweaked and I'm still finding things I want for it and everything. And of course, we've got Neon Dynasty coming up, which will of course give me more stuff for all these decks. Also, the end of this month will be the Secret Lair drop being shipped off, which is the charity drop, the one that has the Craterhoof behemoths in it. I did purchase that back in November, and I bought it in foil. One of the Craterhoofs is going in the Omnath deck, which you will see the week before the pre-release. The other one, I haven't decided where I'm putting it yet, whether it's going to be in card or in Volo. Either way, it's going to be fun. Yeah, reanimate Craterhoof with Karmic Guide and just crush people. That seems fair-ish. So, I might put it in this deck. I don't know. I did get, like I said, I got it in foil. One of the Mold Drifters will probably go in Omnath as well. So, with everything going on in the world, right now. I hope everybody's taking care of themselves. I hope y'all are being good to each other too, because, I mean, the world needs more kindness right now. There's too much hate, too much anger, too much violence. And I hate seeing people suffering. I hate seeing people hurt. It hurts me. I'm very empathic at that, with all that. You know, it just, the way I grew up and the life I had over the last almost 45 years. I've I've seen some stuff and I've been through some stuff. And I don't want anybody else to ever have to go through any of that. So, with all that being said, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Be good to one another. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys next week.